Hey everyone, and welcome back to What Did I Miss?, where today I'll be breaking down all the references, Easter eggs, and things that you may have missed in the 5th episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled An Embarrassment of Dooplers. Before I get going, in case you are not aware, a ton of Star Trek news was released this week, and I created separate videos about the Picard and Strange New Worlds trailer and teaser that I will link here and in the description if you would like to check them out. If you do enjoy these videos, I only ask that you hit the like button on them, as it really does help the channel out a lot. Also, there are a ton of Easter eggs in this episode, which happens to be my favorite so far this season, so whatever I miss, please let us know in the comments. This is the first episode of the 2nd season to not include a cold open scene, as the episode begins with the show's intro. The main plot of the episode concerns an emissary for a never-before-seen species known as Doopler, that will duplicate or duplicate, as it is called in the episode, due to an emotional defense mechanism. This new alien species is obviously a different take on the Tribble, a small furry creature that reproduces so quickly that the species became a pestilence wherever they went. The Klingons even fought a war against this inconspicuous species that they believe had wiped them out by the 23rd century.
Another glorious chapter of Klingon history. Tell me, do they still sing songs of the great Tribble hunt?
The plot of the episode itself is a metaphor for how to deal with someone who may be emotionally compromised. At first, the crew try and pacify the Dooplers, which they believe will help them, but in reality, this just makes things worse and more difficult for the crew and the Dooplers as they begin duplicating anyway. But when the crew finally decides to deal with the Dooplers and say what they feel, the issue starts to get smaller and smaller. Most people, when they witness someone who they feel may be emotionally compromised, have a tendency to try and help them by making things easier for them, but in the end, this usually has the effect of not helping and also making the other person's life more difficult. This episode conveys the idea that dealing with personal issues head-on, while more difficult at first, has the better long-term effect on relationships. This is mirrored by both sets of friends, Boimler and Mariner, as well as Rutherford and Tendi, working out some of their pent-up frustration that they have had this season and last by confronting the other person throughout the episode. The Doopler emissary is voiced by actor-comedian Richard Kind, who has had a very long career and is probably best known for his roles on Mad About You and Curb Your Enthusiasm. When the Cerritos arrives at the Starbase, besides Starfleet vessels, I also saw Andorian and Vulcan vessels docked at the station. Before heading over to the party at the station, Boimler suggests that he and Mariner wear skants. These were the very short style of uniform worn by many female officers in the 24th century and even a few men. After they arrive at the station, we learn that Mariner also lived at the space station at one time. It seems that Mike McMahon and the writers on the show are dropping hints just about every episode about Mariner's long career, and I wonder if it would just be a running gag, or if we will ever know the career history of Beckett Mariner. Although I'm surprised that Boimler has not just looked up Mariner's record by now and learned these things for himself, but I guess that would not be as fun a plot for the series. There's also a Quark's bar in the station, and this is now at least the 3rd different area that we have seen a Quark's bar franchise, after also seeing one in the 3rd episode this season on Quailor 2, as well as there also being one on Freecloud, as seen on the series Star Trek Picard. The alien that is stalking them appears to be a Tellarite. In my last video on Lower Decks, I commented on all the different designs for the species, and how up until this point, it appeared that Lower Decks were using a design that was based on the one used on the series Enterprise. However, Star Trek Prodigy will be debuting soon with a Tellarite character that is more akin to the design used in Star Trek Discovery, which could be confusing, but the Tellarite used in this episode of Lower Decks does resemble the Discovery design a bit more. This makes me think that the franchise may handle the Tellarite design inconsistency like they did with the Romulan design. As in the series Star Trek Picard, a Romulan who worked for Jean-Luc Picard named Laris explains that her husband, who is also Romulan, has a different shaped forehead because he is from a different part of the planet, which explains away why the Romulans have had an inconsistent design over the years. When Boimler and Mariner are walking around the station, they are stopped by an alien named Malvis, who is a Mizarian, a species that was introduced in the Next Generation 3rd season episode Allegiance. He states that Mariner stranded him on Ceti Alpha 4, and that is way worse than Ceti Alpha 5. Ceti Alpha 5 is where Captain Kirk marooned Khan and his followers in the original series episode Space Seed. In the movie The Wrath of Khan, we learn that after Ceti Alpha 6 was destroyed, it changed the planet Ceti Alpha 5 into a wasteland. Did you know that a descendant of Khan will be appearing as a new character on Star Trek Strange New Worlds? If you want to know more about that character and all the others on the show, be sure to check out my brand new video on the series, which I will link here and in the description. In the shop, there's also a really funny shot of 2 blue, very open shirts that Commander Riker wore on The Next Generation. There's also a 3-dimensional chessboard in the shop, which has been seen on many series, and Spock was known to be especially fond of it. As Boimler and Mariner are running from security, whose design reminded me of the cop that arrested a young James Kirk in the Star Trek 2009 reboot, they smash through a casino with Klingons playing Dabo, as well as a barbershop full of Bolians. Mott and Vassal were both Bolian barbers on the Enterprise D and featured on The Next Generation. They also burst through a fine men's clothing shop, and the bolts of fabric in the front remind me of the one seen on Farpoint Station in the pilot episode of The Next Generation. As this scene was featured in a trailer, I mentioned in my video for said trailer that I believe this car chase is a reference to the mall car chase scene in the movie The Blues Brothers, and to double down on that theory, Boimler shouts out each store they burst through, just like the Blues Brothers recite each store they damage in that scene.
Casino! Barbershop! Fine men's clothing!
Disco pants and haircuts, yeah. Baby clothes. This place has got everything.
Also passed virtually every alien species in the Star Trek catalog during this chase, which would make sense if they are on a Federation space station, but they also end up hitting someone in a chair that is very reminiscent of the one used by Captain Pike in the episode The Menagerie. I can't help but think that the character design looks a lot like Alex Kurtzman, the man in charge of the Star Trek franchise at this time. He seems to be pretty unfazed by the chase and laughs as they pass by. I also thought that it was pretty funny that when they almost hit some Vulcans, they do not react, staying true to their calm and cool reputation. The two sentient birds that have a conversation in the Avery are from a race known as Score and were featured on the animated series. The groundskeeper they almost hit looks a lot like Boothby, a groundskeeper at Starfleet Academy played by Ray Walston, and known to have influenced many great officers including Catherine Janeway. The bouncer at the Starfleet Command Conference is the same species as an alien in the animated series episode The Soul of Score, the same episode that featured the bird-like aliens I just mentioned. The party has some really fun callbacks as well. When Boimler first arrives, he notices Captain Shelby. This character was featured in the Next Generation episode Best of Both Worlds, and it is no surprise that she's a captain, as she was shown as a very driven, career-minded officer during her appearance. But her first officer may be the deepest cut reference of the episode, as the alien design is very similar to the initial design of Saru on Star Trek Discovery. While it does look pretty cool, it was found to be too difficult to pull off with all the eyes moving on their own. I really like the actual design of Saru, so I'm glad they went with what became the final rendition, but I think this design is cool and definitely pays homage to the actor that plays the character Saru, Doug Jones, and his distinguished career. Thaddeus O'Kona also seems to be the DJ at the party, and he is a character that was first shown on the Next Generation episode, The Outrageous O'Kona, and the boombox he is carrying is similar to the guidance system he was carrying in his first appearance. What is really interesting is that his character, as well as the actor who originally voiced him, Billy Campbell, are supposed to return on Star Trek Prodigy, which is set all the way in the Delta Quadrant. Mariner and then Boimler end up at a bar that Kirk and Spock visited, and there are a ton of Easter eggs in this place. I'm just going to point out everything I saw, but let me know if you see anything else in the comments. I believe that when we first see Mariner, behind her is a picture of an alien from the Xindi species shown on the series Enterprise. It is known that this race of species is extinct, and it is possible by this time the entire Xindi species is also extinct. I believe that there is also a picture of an Arcadian, a species only seen in the movie Star Trek IV, and kind of looks like they were designed by Clive Barker. When Boimler arrives, on the wall behind him, I see a picture of a salt vampire, a creature now referenced 4 times on Lower Decks and was first seen on the original series, as well as a picture of the puppet creature used by Baylock in the original series episode The Corbinite Maneuver, as well as pictures of the characters Emrys and Erix, who were Enterprise crew members from the animated series, as well as a picture of Commissioner Bella, who was played by Frank Gorshin and was featured in the original series episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, as well as 4 Telosians, a species featured on the original series as well as on Discovery. I also noticed a picture of the original USS Enterprise, which may be from a shot from the original series intro. When Boimler sits down at the bar, I believe behind him there is a picture of Morn, a character featured at Quark's bar on Deep Space Nine. I believe that above him is a picture of an Antikin, a species featured on the Next Generation episode Tapestry. This isn't really a Star Trek callback, but I did notice what looks like an old cigarette machine in the bar. These are not very popular anymore, and I can't see them gaining a rise in popularity again, but I do think it is cool that they would add this type of aesthetic to this hole-in-the-wall bar on a Starfleet space station. There's also an old jukebox in the place, which adds to the dive bar aesthetic. Behind the bartender, there's a model copy of the Guardian of Forever featured in the original series episode, The City on the Edge of Forever. As they pan away from the bar, there's also a replica of the Phoenix rocket ship used in the movie First Contact. Above the bar is a model of the Doomsday Machine featured in the original series episode that shared the same name. Captain Freeman and crew are also shut out of the party, and after she notices that O'Kona is there, she remarks that he isn't even in Starfleet. I think that this is a clever reference to the fact that O'Kona is one of the few characters whose name is used in the title of an episode, but is not part of the main cast. Again, I really like this episode, and I especially like how the end alludes to the first year of Kirk and Spock's time together, which was not shown on the original series. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?